Hi, this is Dave Darrington, and in this module we'll discuss scorecards. In this section, we will begin to understand scorecards and their use from an administrative perspective. We'll learn to set up scorecards for the C360. We'll create new scorecards and configure scorecards for use. While much of Gainsight is based around the processing and use of objective, quantifiable data, there will always be a subjective component to customer success management. Scorecards are a simple, visual way to combine objective and subjective elements to track the health of your customers. This is a screenshot from C360 showing what scorecards look like, both subjective and objective. Subjective scores include things like personal interactions with customers. Objective scores are data-driven and will come out of automated processes via the rules engine. To build an understanding of scorecards and their use, let's first review some key terms. A scorecard is a scoring scheme that comprises one or more measures that monitor different signals of health or risk. Measures track one specific metric related to customer health and are grouped according to what they potentially indicate. For example, the opportunities measure group includes things like promoters discovered in NPS surveys, high usage, such as greater than 90% licenses used, and upsells, things that generally indicate that the relationship with your customer is healthy and there might be an opportunity for an upsell or an expansion in services. The risks measure group, on the other hand, might measure NPS survey detractors, large numbers of support tickets, or a very long response time from support, etc., and indicate that we might be in danger of losing a customer. Scorecards can be found in two locations, within dashboards and more commonly within C360 pages. Scorecards are commonly displayed using a red, yellow, green kind of color scheme, using color to display a measure that outlines a grade range. The colors and number of levels are both configurable. From an administrative perspective, you can apply different weights to each measure as well. For example, perhaps you're interested within a measure group of how many tickets were created from support, and you could weight that accordingly. I can renew it, or I can even remove it. So this is a little bit about the front end of the interface. Now let's take a look at the administrative back end. C360 and enable customer level rollout. If unchecked, it enables users to input the health score. Grading schemes include different kinds of schemes such as numeric and red, yellow, green. You can select one type and only one type of grading scheme, and this will apply to all individual scores. Again, red, yellow, green is perhaps the easiest to read and to configure. Then we'll discuss configuring groups and measures themselves. This allows for any group or measure to be created and allows distribution or weighting of different measures. And then finally, we'll talk about adding scorecards to the C360, which is easy to do under the Administration tab. To access scorecard administration screens, we'll need to go to Administration range. A number. This number assigned is what you see in the column called average. After the measures are put into the weighted average formula, the final number is compared against the grade range column. Wherever it falls is what that customer is given as its overall health score. If you want to adjust the behind the scenes number, adjust the numbers in the grade range column to fit your preferred average. Now let's cover some of the highlights around configuration. To create a new group, we'll input a name, then add a group, which will create a group at the bottom of the page. To create a new measure within that group, you'll use a template on the right-hand side. Help text is very useful. In the red, yellow, green scheme, for example, we could specify what each color means exactly to enforce consistency as to what it represents. Clicking Weight will allow you to assign weights to measures, prioritizing them based on what's important to your organization. These weights are percentages, representing how much of an effect that measure has on the customer's overall health score. You are allowed to set this to 0 for a measure, and this is helpful if you have a metric you want to show a scorecard of, but don't necessarily want it affecting the overall health score. Now let's create some measures and some measure groups and bring all this together. So now I'm in the Administration Scorecard Configuration screen. And if I click the chevron, I can see that's under Health Scoring, Scorecards 1.0. Let's close that. And I'd like to create a new Customer Health Score group. In the Measure and Group Configuration top section, I type that in and I click Add Group. It will add the new group. Now that actually occurs down at the bottom of the screen. Here I can see my customer health score. I could edit that if I needed to do so. And I have a template for which I can create my measures. Now let's go ahead and create some new measures. Let's create 3 of them. Here I'll create logins. And I'll set that to manual with a validity period of 2 weeks. And click again that template box, support, in manual in 2 weeks. And finally, sponsor. Same thing. And then I will see I have 3 boxes. These are my measures for login, support, and sponsor. Now if I want to be thorough, I can configure help text screen. And I would set the ranges for what I want. Not a great example here, but I said 0 to 50 is in the red and it's bad, 50 to 75 is okay, and 75 to 100 is good. Really what I'd want to do in this case is give some kind of a good instruction to the end user on, for a subjective measure, what this would mean. Go ahead and save that. It's worth mentioning that there are 2 different kinds of measures. One, as we've seen here that we set correctly, is a manual, but we also have Smart Sign. And on my screen here you should be able to see, for example, here is one login Smart Sign, type Smart Sign. If you select manual, normally that's going to be updated by a click of the mouse or via the rules engine. But you'll obviously ask, what is a smart sign? If you have enough data and the measure that you're creating is based off of a single metric, you may choose to use smart sign instead. This will assign the measure a value based on how that particular customer fits in the bell curve of how all customers with regards to that metric are. Also, let's talk about the validity period. Now, I'd instructed you to set a validity period of 2 weeks. This might be confusing to you. The validity period is especially useful for measures which you are expecting your end users to keep updated. That means these are subjective measures. This will cause a small icon to appear next to the metric once it's out of date. Now the metric will still be there, but you'll be notified that it isn't current as it should be. So it's a helpful reminder to update that metric to the end user. It's also helpful if you have executives or people who very infrequently visit Gainsight and look at the interfaces that will let them know how reliable the data they're looking at is. Now finally, let's talk weight distribution. Weight distribution can be spread across all groups. If I click the percentage around 1, here you will get a listing of all the scorecards that you have across every group. These need to sum to 100. You can see over here I have a sum and a balance. So if I start to change these, the sum will of course remain, and I can see how much left over I have. In this case, let's set the sponsor down to 60. And I know I have 20 left, so let's say 10, 5, and 5 for the remaining. It won't let me save if there's an outstanding balance. And once I get it right, I can save it, and everything's good. So let's click Save. It will give me a message. Great. So now I should have a new measure group with several different measures in it. If I go back to my 360 view and I refresh that view, and now I go to my scorecards. If I scroll down to where my new measure group and measures are, I can see that I have the customer health score measure group with 3 measures, one for logins, one for support, and one for sponsor. I can go into these and I can change them manually, and I can save the score, and I can actually also, let's save this, and if I choose to do so, I can make comments. Once I save that checkbox, we're done. This is the end of our scorecards session. Thanks for joining us, and in the next module, we'll turn our attention to Cockpit.